We have a guest in the studio. He's a member of parliament for Kasarani constituency. He's been here before. The Honorable Captain RONALD Karauri is our guest. Good morning, Captain.
Good morning, Eric. Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana. It's good to have you back here.
Asante.
A couple of months now as a member of parliament.
Yes.
You're used to, the hallowed halls of the august house. How are they?
It's good. It's a good experience. It took a bit of time to get used to it, but I think now we are getting to the point where we need to start doing the work properly now.
Now you understand the job.
Exactly, yes.
Now you understand the workings, the ins and outs.
Exactly, yes.
We'll talk about that. City has the day's proverb. The whole of this week is being given us proverbs from Malawi.
But I have to ask, have you gotten used to being referred to as Mheshimiwa?
In fact, I wish only the people in Kasarani would call me Mheshimiwa.
Yes.
I prefer Captain, to be honest.
Captain is better. What about Captain Mheshimiwa?
Captain. One title at a time.
Okay, our proverb from the country of Malawi for today. This is our last day. A piece of incense may be as large as the knee, but unless burnt, emits no fragrance.
A piece of incense may be as large as the knee,
Yes.
but unless burned, and it emits that fragrance. Bure. Captain, what do you make of this proverb? What's your interpretation of it?
Well, something can only be useful once it serves its purpose. You could have, you could have something, unless you use it.
Once it's put
for
to
what
use.
it's meant to, yes. Then, it's useless.
It's bure.
Bure kabisa.
You can be a member of parliament, but unless you're actually doing the thing you're supposed to be doing.
True. Very true.
Yes, bure.
Very true.
Oh, in the bure.
Ni kweli kabisa.
Captain, I've known you for many years.
Yes.
And your quest for leadership and, how easily you listen to people and you want to represent. So all those times when you are with the Airline Pilots Association and you wanted to be in the leadership of the Airline Pilots Association and you went into private business and you were engaging with people across the country. And as I was talking about you coming earlier, saying at some point you were the biggest sponsor of sporting events in this country.
Correct.
And you are engaging with communities across.
Yes.
And you're hearing the youth and what they are saying. And also coming from a political homestead. These two combined, I'm sure that's how you ended up in that thinking of, no, maybe we need to do something for people. Maybe instead of just talking from the periphery, I ought to get in there and do something for the people. And you went to Kasarani and you convinced them that you're the man for the job. And they gave you the job.
Yes, Eric.
Hi. Now you are in parliament.
Yes.
Is what you see the same thing that you used to see when you were outside parliament and you were getting frustrated at our political leaders and what they are doing and what they are not doing?
That's a very good question. It's exactly what I see when I'm in parliament. Because now, I think there's a tweet I made, I think sometime, maybe 2 weeks ago, and I said, the problem we have in Kenya is too much politics. But I did not give it context because sometimes on Twitter, people respond for the sake of responding. It's very hard to have a conversation on Twitter. But since I have this opportunity, I'll elaborate. Because you see, we're at a situation in Kenya where we need leadership more than politics. What's happening with the finance bill is very good for the country because there's a lot of debate. It hasn't happened in a long time, but it has brought the perception to Kenyans that this is the first time there's a finance bill. There are some Kenyans who really believe there has never been a finance bill before.
That Ruto is the one who's come up with this
He's come up with this bill that is going to torment us. But finance bill has always been there and it's necessary because, of course, as you know, the budget has to be funded.
Yep.
So instead of leaders going ahead to educate the people on what is required in terms of the finance bill, there's too much politics at play. I was very happy to see Esther Passaris come out and say some truths that needed to be said. But you can see, especially for Azimio, there's an opposition where they have very valid points sometimes. But other times it becomes a political affair, whereby nobody is going to benefit from that. And if we are to change that...
Nobody?
Well, there's some benefit. But even if you're in opposition... For example, let me say something now. The finance bill as it is, there's no way it can pass as is. It's not possible. But it was never meant to. Because there's always the element of public participation. Again, I've seen Kenya Kwanza MPs stating that the bill will pass as is. What is the point of the finance committee taking views from the public and then not changing a single comma in the finance bill? It becomes unconstitutional. So that again is politics. Kenya Kwanza insisting it will pass as is, it will not. Then Azimio saying that the finance bill must fail so that there is no finance bill. That also cannot be true. So there must be room for amendments, and they all know this. But when they go to the public, these are the narratives they push out there. That's why sometimes I say in Kenya we have too much politics and we are lacking in leadership. Because these leaders are the ones who are supposed to go out there and say these truths to the people.
Do I hear you to be saying that in essence, if you were to be objective, that many of our politicians are actually not leaders?
Yes. Sorry to say. We have very many politicians in Kenya, very few leaders. And the situation we're in right now, everyone has been talking. Do you know, even last year, the whole narrative was about the debt.
Yep.
The debt that we've acquired. That was the narrative. Even at some point, I remember reading in the Business Daily, they were saying, whoever takes over from Uhuru will have to find out where he'll be getting approximately 4 billion shillings a day. That was the narrative then. The narrative now has changed. When there are revenue-raising measures, now it has become an oppressive regime.
Yep.
So if Azimio were responsible as opposition, I would have let them come forward and say, look, we have seen this finance bill. It's ridiculous. It's a very bad finance bill. What we should do, instead of raising revenue from these people, for example, content creators are going to be taxed. Instead of taxing content creators, let's tax somebody else.
Yeah.
Because you cannot just say something is bad and you have no alternative. Because even me as an MP, now I'm independent. I'm very happy to be independent because I cannot whip in
whatever direction.
into either direction. But so that as an MP now you can say, I have this option and this option. The best option is this one. Now you have on one side someone saying, no, finance bill will not pass. And on the other side, people saying finance bill will pass
As is.
Both cannot happen. So what are you trying to tell the people on the ground? And on Twitter, I'm being asked, you are our MP. Are you saying yes or no? But it's not a yes or no question.
Would you then say that even your work is cut out for you in informing and educating?
Yes.
We talk about sensitization. Sensitization, social media does that. It tells, just making somebody aware that this thing exists.
Yes.
But making them understand isn't sensitization.
It is not.
It's actually educating.
It is educating.
Now, do you actually think that these politicians who masquerade as leaders in this country actually wish to have their people acquire the knowledge that they would need to be able to understand? Because from what you're saying, most of us are actually acting out of ignorance.
You know, and that's the problem with politics.
Yes.
You see, for a politician, I would first ask myself, will that education ensure that I retain my seat for the next election?
How does it affect my position?
How does it affect me? Because most of the time, in fact, people are jumping on either side sometimes so that they become popular. Like, if I was to just come out and start saying, I will not support it, I become very popular on the ground. With the people who I'm supposed to lead and educate and tell them, look, this is what is supposed to come from the finance bill. If we are supposed to propose amendments, in fact, public participation should be, there's a specific amendment. There's a specific thing in the finance bill that is hurting me. And in terms of the finance committee, they welcomed people from those sectors.
Yep.
Like if it's agriculture, they call you and ask you, okay, there's this tax that is proposed that is supposed to affect you.
Yep.
Because we cannot be experts in everything. I'm an expert in one thing. I'm not even an economist, for example. But I'm in parliament representing my people.
Yeah.
So it means there are certain specific things in a finance bill I could be an expert on. And there are others that they are the experts. So when the committee calls these people to come, that's what we call public participation. They come and explain, look, you guys are proposing this, but I do this. And I can assure you, if you do this, it will have this kind of effects. So even this discussion, before we get the report from the finance committee, because the report is coming. I think it will come by next week. And they'll tell us, we did our public participation. We had people from these various sectors. The content creators came. These other people came, and this is what they told us. And after they told us, they gave us this information, this is our report and our opinion now as the legislators, and we are presenting this to Parliament.
Yes.
So before we engage these experts, sometimes these conversations and discussions become a bit, it's just to raise the temperatures of people in the country. Okay. Because I love Edwin. Edwin Sifuna is my friend. I love him. He's a fantastic debater. And whenever he appears on TV, he probably will whitewash everybody. Doesn't mean whatever he's saying is true or correct. He's just very good.
He's just a good orator.
Yeah, and he's a very good asset for the opposition. Yeah, so, it's all politics.
Let's look into the mind of members of parliament for a minute.
Yes.
And that question that Eric asked, when you are on this other side of things, as an individual living in community, making your own impact in business, in the airlines, captain. Now, as a member of parliament, do you have an expectation that the people that you shepherd, is there an expectation that their voices will rise up for you to actually go and do something, or do you expect that they'll be quiet?
I think there will be a change, but the change has to come from the leadership as well.
No, let me ask it differently. Do you assume that people will actually not? Is the status quo that people are actually not going to say anything about an issue, that they will keep quiet? You don't expect them to say anything, and this is why you can have those political debates in parliament, because there's no expectation that the people are going to say anything. Do you feel that way now that you are a member of parliament?
Maybe I don't understand. Expectation from the public itself to say something in terms of protests.
Yes.
This is happening.
Absolutely.
No, I think for me, when I was outside and what I was looking, my whole issue was that there was a lack of leadership. Now, getting the people to comment on something is again dependent on the leadership that they have. For example, we have this protests, let's say we were the Maandamano.
Yep.
I don't think it's difficult. Getting a reason for people to protest is not a hard thing. It depends on the leader and what they want to do. Mobilizing for people to protest is not a hard thing. If you tell me now tomorrow I go get people from Kasarani, I know what I can tell them. I know the way I can interpret something to ensure that they get animated enough to come to the streets. So again, it's the direction of the leaders. And our leaders are actually quite powerful. And that's why it would be good if the leaders point us in a certain direction. It looks like right now there are some people pulling in one direction. They might have valid points.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the country has to move. Because where we are right now, there's an expectation that things must improve.
Yeah.
And I gave this analogy of an airplane stalling. That before things get better, they probably get a bit worse. And this is the first finance bill from this regime. And most of the things they're saying there, they promised. In Kasarani, they voted for UDA, except for me. From president to all the MCAs, it's all UDA. I'm the only person who was independent. And UDA kept going around with their manifesto. In fact, for the housing, for me, is the easiest one, if you ask me. Because, to me, it seems like both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio agree on that housing levy. Raila had mentioned it, and Ruto now is talking about it.
Yeah.
So, in terms of an amendment, to make it easier, what I would do is ask them to reduce it to 1.5%. Then that means Raila and Ruto have agreed, and then there's nothing to debate.
But why we can see this theatre of drama that happens, which you've talked about yourself, it's political. What we saw on the house yesterday of all the barbs that were flying back and forth is now people are trying to make sure that their spaces are protected.
Yes.
And for me, the question is, what happens to the people's voice, the real voice? Or is the expectation of this circus that people are not going to talk anyway? I'm still going back to that question. The expectation is that Kenyans are not going to say anything anyway, so we can do what we want to do in here.
So we can be the only voices.
Yeah.
So no, but I think that's a misconception.
Is it?
These people you see in parliament, I will assure you, when they go to their constituencies, they have that power. The people there, the people listen to them. I don't know how to put it.
Okay.
People do actually listen to them.
So people listen to the politicians.
They
The
do.
politicians
Okay.
are not
They do.
listening to the people.
They are. You know, what I'm trying to say is that we're in a situation whereby this leader should go back to the people and talk to them. Leadership is not just, I go and take instructions from my people in Kasarani. There's an expectation I can also go explain to the people and tell them, I'm taking this direction because of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
And those people will actually listen. That is why they voted for these people. They actually have that kind of respect for these leaders. And you might have seen that circus. Of course, we know those MPs who did whatever they did.
In part.
If they go to the ground, you'll be surprised. They have the support of the people there. And they'll tell those people, I had to do 1, 2, 3 and cause a ruckus in the house because of whatever reason. And those people will cheer them on.
But then, even with leadership is showing people the direction to take.
Correct.
But also taking their inputs and their
Correct.
feedback.
Correct.
And the first thing is and identifying them. And that's why even in our topic today, we were saying the role of an MP in representation.
Yes.
So as the representative of the people of Kasarani constituency, it's expected that when you speak, you're amplifying the voice of the people in Kasarani,
Correct.
which means that the first thing that you did is you listened
Yes.
to what the people in Kasarani want. You had a conversation with them. They told you this is the direction we'd like to take. You gave your input as well. If the direction that they want to take is the same direction that you'd like to go, you agree, yes, in fact, I agree, this is the direction we go. If you think differently, then you convince them why you think differently and why they should then give you the opportunity to lead them in a different direction.
Correct.
But the whole point is you're representing the people.
Correct.
Do you think all the 290 of you who've been elected and sent by specific constituents are actually representing the people? Or are there members in parliament who are leading and expecting the people to follow them?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question, because you're right. In terms of, and the main point is, the education part is actually, for example, and I said we cannot be experts in everything. So if I'm thinking of a different direction, it's upon me to go to the people and tell them, look, the reason I think this is good or bad is because of 1, 2, 3, 4. They might not have that information. And Twitter is a misleading place. A famous man once said, Twitter is not a real place. So, and I can assure you, even when I was campaigning, I disregarded Twitter and everything else, because you have to go down to the people themselves. The debate with the people themselves, the people on the ground. And if you talk to them and explain to them, they'll probably listen to the leaders. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
The perception that these leaders have just come up with their own, I don't think it's 100% correct. Because the representation we have that they are going against the people, it's a very small spectrum we're talking about. The people on social media who, sometimes it's manipulated in terms of what is popular and what is not. And you're right. The people should go down. But what would it take, for example, for the finance bill from an education perspective? Because for you to tell them what direction you're taking, they need to really understand what finance bill means, what everything means, so it just doesn't become a yes, no question or an amendment or things touching on them. And you tell them, if my constituents are farmers, I go and explain to them, look, this is very bad for you because now from 0 rated, you're going to exempt.
Yeah.
And we're talking of subsidizing fertilizer. So that, like, for example...
And what those two mean.
What those two mean.
Yeah.
Now, for example, just with those particular clauses, can finance bill pass with those clauses? I don't think it can, because amendments must be proposed to return them to 0 rated. How do you subsidize fertilizer and it's being taxed? It doesn't make any sense. So those are things that have to be looked at. And even now, why I mention that is that's a Kenya Kwanza issue, because they're the ones who talked about subsidizing production.
Yeah.
So you cannot say you're subsidizing production and you're taxing it again. So even from them, they are the ones who should propose the amendment. So they cannot say it'll pass without amendments. And even them, they have issues with things that they want to pass.
Mheshimiwa, there's an issue here. And I have this sense that it goes beyond what we're saying, but it gets to the heart of the matter in my mind. Because I'm listening to you and there's something very fundamental that you are touching on. Huh? And I want to take the discussion beyond Parliament and take it to the county. Who receive
billions.
Man, it's an unbelievable amount of money. But for some reason, the idea of growing the pot and making counties viable institutions seems to have escaped the bulk of our governors. We have debated this. Is it a capacity issue? Is that people elected and given jobs that are beyond them, the things they can't actually do? Because the middling and the meddling around that we see probably is the sum total of their capacity. And we keep saying they should do more and they actually can't. Or is it that their understanding of what ought to be done begins and ends again with what we see? Because I would be of this opinion. If I were committed to stealing, it would make more sense if there's a lot to steal. So even if I take a small portion of it, no one would actually notice that I've taken it. But when you eat the seeds and there's nothing more to plant, then you can't have a harvest. And that's what seems to happen at the level of the county. Whatever the counties are given are eaten at source. So the possibility of growth is eliminated completely. My view, of course. Now, if that's the leadership one sees at the county level, what hope do members of parliament have with the little CDF that they have, or county assembly members with this money they're hoping that they will get to be able to manage their counties, or the monies that the counties are supposed to allocate to them for their functions? What hope is there in devolution actually doing what it's supposed to do? Because if it did, then we would see leadership at play. Currently, you hardly see it. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, and it's I know people always say like the leaders are the representation of the people. So, and again, devolution, it has, to me, and you're right, somehow the fight is always enough money is not coming from national government to the county governments.
Yep.
Do the county governments have enough capacity to raise their own revenue? Because ideally that's what should have been happening from the onset. And even in terms of the capacity of utilizing those funds. If you get a thief into county, of course, don't expect anything different from that governor. And I think something needs to change in terms of how counties, when they allocated the funds, it becomes how they account for those funds. It needs to be I don't know how it can be made more strict, because counties will always ask for more money. Nobody asks for less money. There's always new things to do.
Yet they hardly ever tell us what it is they've actually done with that money.
Exactly, in terms of accountability.
Yes, when the Auditor General comes in, we are told what they haven't done with what they were supposed to have done.
Exactly.
Before you came in, we were talking about the role of citizen-led initiatives. Okay? And we were asking, is this where now the citizen ought to come in to understand that when this money is given to the county, it's actually meant for me, not the governor and his friends. Yes. And if it's meant for me, is it then doing what is supposed to help me or help my small community? And if it doesn't, then should we now not take the step of ensuring that our money actually works for us? Because it's our money. The money that the county gets is taxpayers' money that is allocated to them to help the people in their counties at what we call the local level.
Correct. And that's why, I think as I said when we were starting, where we are starting now, I think is a very good place, where there's all this debate of finance bill. When we get to next year, the debate will have shifted a bit in terms of even educating the people beforehand, people to understand this is what is coming, this is what finance bill means. It will be a different environment. And you can imagine between now and next year, a huge population will have understood what finance bill means, what the budget means, because there's very little discussion about the budget estimates, which the budget has gone up. Instead of people querying now, okay, finance bill wants to raise this much revenue, but it's because we are spending this much money.
More.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we are spending this much, where they should be poking holes or looking at, other than the debt, which everybody knows, is the rest of the money, this 2 trillion going to the executive. Where exactly is it going? Not like, they'll say a certain number of billions is going, for example, to the Ministry of Interior.
Yes.
Why don't you go now and check in that Ministry of Interior, what is this money supposed to do?
What exactly does it do?
The exact thing that money is supposed to do. That is what should be queried at the initial stage. Instead of saying now, when it comes to the finance bill, which must finance this budget and they must balance, let's collapse the finance bill. Now, that will not make sense at all.
There has to be a finance bill.
The finance bill will be there. So long as there's a budget, there'll be a finance bill. So I think leaders need to tell people the truth, that they must pass. When I started that engagement on Twitter, what I was expecting that gentleman to ask me is to tell me is that I'm not happy with housing. I'm not happy with this. Then we can see what kind of amendment we can have, either to delete the whole clause or to propose an amendment to reduce the rate,
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it cannot be a yes or no issue, because I even checked some of the issues. The finance bill also corrects some issues we had in the Tax Procedures Act, in terms of how, because I've been a victim of KRA harassment.
KRA.
So Tax Procedures Act is also very important in terms of when they claim that you owe them a certain amount of tax, how that procedure goes so that you can clarify the issue. Like this thing of that you have to deposit a
20%.
certain amount of money will create room for KRA to become the biggest extortionists in Kenya. And there will be no money collected. There will be no money collected. You can imagine, there's a time I was given a bill, not me, my company was given a bill of 92 billion.
Nice.
92 billion.
92 billion.
All right.
Of course, the purpose of the bill was to ensure I don't get a license, so that by the time you clear that up, you've
time
collapsed
has
already.
passed.
But you can imagine, of course, you protest to the 92 billion.
Yeah.
Now, if they had been told to pay 25%,
Of 92 billion.
how are you going to proceed? Because you protest, you pay 92 billion. You pay 25%. You don't protest, you look for 92 billion.
You
to
look
pay.
for everything.
You can imagine now they'll go, and remember, the person who comes up with this bill, the KRA official, he has no repercussions.
Yeah.
So if I'm a KRA official, I just come to your business, I tell you, you owe 10 million shillings. If you want to dispute, go pay 2.5. So, you're just creating avenue for KRA to become
Extortionist.
Yeah.
And just a simple way of them hitting a target.
Exactly.
We are coming to the end of the month.
Yes.
Oh my God, we are short 1 billion shillings.
Yes.
Okay,
So
let's
let's
look.
go.
Yes.
Pap, go to Sportpesa, go
Exactly.
to Eric and City Company. All those guys, 25 billion, we hit our
We're
target.
done.
Exactly.
We report.
Exactly. So that such a clause, honestly, cannot pass. And I think it has been defeated. It has been defeated in court before. Yeah. So
And-
some of these amendments, honestly.
Let's take a break. We'll continue this conversation shortly. 25 minutes to 9. Our guest this morning is Captain RONALD KARAURI. He's the Member of Parliament for Kasarani constituency, elected on an independent ticket. And he's here today. We're talking about the MPs and the role of representation. He was running a business. Then he felt, no, I need to participate in all these things that we're making noise outside. How about I participate in being part of the solution? We are seeking to understand his understanding of the journey so far.
Spice.
Remember, if you ever miss out a conversation, maybe because you were in a meeting, you got up late, there was a power blackout, one reason or the other, you can still catch up with the conversations whenever. If you just go to YouTube and you search Spice FM, and you will find all our daily conversations. Captain RONALD KARAURI, the Member of Parliament for Kasarani constituency, is our guest this morning. City.
Captain Mheshimiwa. Why did you run an independent ticket?
Of course, well, when I started on Jubilee,
Oh,
I started on Jubilee. Then the ticket was given away.
It was given away.
These are another short story.
The ticket was given away. So at that point, I asked myself, if I go to the general election, will the ticket again be given away? So
you said no.
I was assured that the main election is not like nominations; it will be okay. So I went independent. Yeah, I was initially Jubilee.
You know, we talk about this all the time, and City likes asking all politicians. Before one becomes a member of parliament, you see them in their private life, and you see them maybe even getting platforms on media to articulate on issues and say what they feel ought to happen. And you're like, these are the people that we need in parliament. These are the people that need to go there.
You admire these
You
people.
admire them. You look at somebody and you look at their track record. Look at, okay, so you have been a captain, you have served at Kenya Airways, you left, you went into private business, you excelled, you've handled billions. You know, we talk about billions here, like you've signed off.
For us, it's an academic
Billions. You have dealt with, you've seen the impacts of your small business in the grand scheme of things on communities and on events such as sports, and then you decide you go into parliament. What happens to people when they go to parliament? That's a question that City always asks.
Yes, but it baffles me completely.
It must be the water.
Okay.
It must be the
It's,
water.
it happened at the gate. Yes.
So, City, I think all I can assure you is personally, I've not changed. So my voice might not be the loudest. You know, that's the disadvantage I have being an independent. But it's also good because I have the freedom to speak my mind. My voice might not be the loudest now,
Yes.
but you will see my voice becoming louder as we proceed. But what usually happens, especially what I've seen, is with the political parties. With the political parties, it becomes a bit difficult. I've seen honorable members, good people, clearly know what they are saying or doing is wrong, but they must do it.
Because they've been
Because?
whipped by the
Yes,
party.
because of being whipped by the party.
Okay.
I've seen it. I've seen it several times. So I think that's actually where we need to
And by party here, do we mean structures of a party or do we mean individual leader of the party? What's the difference?
individual leaders, individual leadership of the party. But because there's two aspects. Remember now, Kenya Kwanza is government.
Yes.
So that's a different kind of whipping. I tell you why it's different. And the president says it several times, but people take it to mean like it's threatening. I don't think it's a threat, because he even tells the MPs, we campaigned together with you. And for some of the MPs, some MPs have even mentioned to me, this election was quite difficult. Then the president came one of the last days, changed everything, and I won. We campaigned together on the same platform, with the same manifesto, and we promised 1, 2, 3 things.
Yeah.
Now, I'm trying to actualize those things. You're trying to say, I don't do it. Now, that's a different kind of whipping. You get my point? There's another kind of whipping of saying, okay, whatever those guys do is wrong. You don't need to have a reason. It's wrong. Now,
So long as it's them doing
as
it,
long as it's them,
it's wrong.
we cannot allow it. Give them the hardest time possible. Now, you know, and this is the politics of Kenya.
These are
It's our
words.
reality.
These are words that you actually hear spoken.
I've heard those words, believe me. I've heard those words spoken. So when you hear, for example, Osoro saying, the bill must pass, remember he has a job. It's his job. He's a majority whip. He has to ensure that it passes. So he's not lying. He has to make sure it passes. But in terms of what document comes to be passed, he actually said, that one I leave it to Parliament in terms of the amendments and whatever. But once it comes to that final stage where it has to pass, I have to do my job. So he's not lying. He's saying the truth. So what we have to try and ensure, and that's why where Azimio should come in as opposition, is to ensure those specific amendments that they want are part of that final finance bill.
Yeah.
When it comes to the committee of the whole house, they have their amendments there. Instead of saying, we are waiting to vote no, because first of all, they don't even have the numbers. So if you're waiting,
no will have zero impact.
Exactly. Telling people no, even now you're telling the public you're going to vote no, you're not going to change anything. So if you're being responsible as leaders, what you should do, propose those amendments and say, housing, we want it 1.5, like Raila had proposed before. These are the things we want to reduce, add here and there. Give those proposals so that when it comes to that day, you'll have achieved something. As opposed to saying, we'll vote no. That no vote will go nowhere. It won't go anywhere. Everybody knows. But the perception they will give, and remember, this is what the perception they want to give.
Yeah.
And it's all politics, is to say, we refused that bad finance bill, and President Ruto forced it down our throats. But that's very misleading, because as a responsible opposition, you have a role to play to bring those amendments, because you know at the end of the day, finance bill must pass. You allowed the budget to pass without saying anything. So now why are you shooting down finance bill? Where is the money supposed to come from? So, as I said before, even if the bill comes today in its current form, even myself, I'll vote no. Yeah, and at that point, even Okia Mtata can go to court and say it's unconstitutional because it passed. There's even public outcry. You see, when we say public participation, it means even the media, what people are talking about, you've taken it, you've heard. You can't say we didn't hear anything and we've passed it as it is. So at that point, Okia Mtata can go to court and say this is unconstitutional. There's no way a bill can come. They do public participation. It remains the same
nothing.
That's ridiculous. So at that point, he can go to court. Right now, he's going prematurely because, of course, the certificate of urgency is going to court. Again, this is populism. that thing cannot go anywhere. There's no court that will stop that finance bill because the process of public participation has not happened. Nothing has happened for him to go to court and say all those things he's saying, because public participation can remedy many of the issues he's saying. There's a possibility. It might not, or it might. That's why you have to go after and say, look, these guys did all this thing. I see mischief because 1, 2, 3 things didn't happen.
So the finance bill as it currently stands is a proposal.
Correct.
It is when it is passed that you can refer to it as the bill.
Correct. As an act.
Now it's an act.
No, now it's a bill.
Now it's a bill.
Then it
when
becomes
it's passed,
an act.
it becomes an act.
Correct.
Now you can take the act to court.
Yes. So
But-
this act is unconstitutional because 1, 2, 3, 4. The courts are very reluctant to interfere with the legislative because they say, let them do their work first. Because now you're preempting and saying, these guys have proposed, for example, he says, this housing, you cannot force people to save.
Yeah.
I think
It has not passed yet.
Sure.
Yeah, so
I think what irks me is that at the end of the day, you may think that the opposition gets the short end of the stick and then whoever else gets the longer end of the stick. But for me, the people who perennially get the short end of the stick are the people of Kenya. The people who have to sit and be the audience towards this circus. The people who have to sit and listen to these things. And if you can figure it out to say, I mean, it is clear that you can figure it out to say that people are either in there delving for their own expediency or making sure that they are, playing to the tune, dancing to the tune of the piper. The question remains then, what happens to the people? What happens to the majority of the people for whom their representation is vested in under 300 people?
yes.
Who are supposed to be there actually speaking for these amendments that you're talking about. It's not hard to figure. It's not rocket science. And I keep saying, even rocket science, somebody's a rocket scientist. Somebody figured it out and is actually doing that business, right? So if you can say that an opposition should just not come out and say, no, blanket, no, that you can propose certain things. If those in the majority should not just come out and say blanket yes, and it doesn't make sense. If we can see that that is what should be happening, the question is then, why do they not do it? And if we can figure out a why, then those folks should not be in those positions.
I get you. And what I want to say is that, do you know, they're actually doing it. You know, there's two things they do. They're actually doing the process because the committee is working. When you look at parliament, you'll see MPs from Azimio side proposing those. You will see it. They will propose those amendments. But the problem is that the message they relate to the public. That's what I'm trying to say. When they go now, they come on radio, for example, they will say something different.
Yeah.
When he's in parliament, he will actually propose and say, this is what I want
He'll be
amended.
pushing some amendments.
They will actually do it. But then now when they come out, they mislead the public to say, we are going to just say no. Of course, they'll vote no, but they will still propose amendments because they know that process must continue that way. So my issue is in how they come to the public and convey that information just to raise political temperatures. So they'll just say, no, that thing is so bad that it cannot pass. I'll say no. We've had bad finance bills before, and they've been debated. And people propose amendments. Sometimes they don't pass, sometimes they pass.
Yep.
It's not new. What is new is that Kenya, we've had 5 years of no opposition. So it seems very new, but it has been there. And this will be our way of life moving forward. It'll be our way of life. So I think politicians, where they go wrong is that when they whip up those emotions and they mislead the public. And they know the process themselves. And they will go to that parliament and follow that procedure. And actually propose amendments and get to the end of the stage where we have to first pass the finance bill, and they will do it. But when they come on radio or on the streets, they say something completely different.
You know, there's something you said, and it ties in very, very nicely with what we were talking about in the hour prior to this one. You say politicians actually listen to their people. Okay, so are we therefore saying that this drama we see in Parliament, or this drama we sometimes see when they come, say, to a place like this, is for the people or is it for themselves? Because there's an audience they're pandering to. There's someone who's listening to what they're saying.
Yes.
So is that, we know it ends up, sum total, you're misleading. You're not speaking the truth as you should. But what purpose does that serve? Because at some point the truth will be known.
It is for the people.
Yes.
You see, now, how do I look like I'm the biggest opposition leader who is fighting for...
If I don't,
I'm not seen fighting in parliament.
but you see,
Because you see, like yesterday, the speaker has ruled already. The fighting is not going to change anything. How is it going to change something? the issue probably with what the speaker did, maybe it sets a precedent, because I don't know whether a judgment or an order now stopping the speaker from doing something clearly he should have done is enforceable in parliament. I'm not sure. You know, I'm not a legal expert. But does it mean that in the future, if I just want to stop Speaker Wetangula from doing something, I just go get orders and I block him from doing something? So it does set a certain precedent. I don't know. And at the same time, Azimio have a point. They are saying, how can someone who has clearly defected, well, not defected,
is gone against
our whip.
What we stand for.
Exactly.
How can she whip us?
Exactly. There's a huge point there. So I don't know whether that's supposed to be sorted internally. I don't know whether with the political parties tribunal, but something needs to be done on that side. They need to sort that out for sure. Yes, but they should still participate in the legislative process.
You see, the point that I was making earlier on with regards to the county has been made well by what you've said, because then you're asking, if as politicians who aspire to be leaders, you feel that you promote your cause by not telling the whole truth when you should, what then do you think you're setting in motion? Because that seems to be the fodder that you feed people on.
Yeah.
Do you really believe that there will be no comeback, that at some point this will not ricochet and come back to you in a form you probably will not want? Is it not better to have a population that actually is very well informed for your sake and even for the future of this career that you've chosen? Because if we are saying that what they say are untruths, unfortunately the truth will come out, and often at the most inconvenient times even for you.
It's true.
And how will that help you?
That's why you're not a politician. You see,
sorry.
you're 100% right. 100% right. But your thinking is now, you need, I don't know how.
My thinking is misguided.
It's not the politicians.
It doesn't fit in this.
Exactly.
But maybe this is where we as the citizens, as the voters also have got to take a responsibility. How is it that we listen to somebody, we elect them, and then we expect that whatever they tell us always is right, and we don't even sit back and have our own information? How do we not understand the budget making process and the entire cycle and what comes before the other, right? This is where we ought to find ways of educating ourselves. Okay, civil society has a role to play here as well, in terms of just making sure that there is proper political and civic education in the country. Budget making cycle, when does it begin? How important is the month of September in the entire budget making cycle? How important is the month of February when the first documents start landing in Parliament, and what happens after that? Because if we understood all these things, if we understood the budget policy statement, the budget estimates, and then the finance bill, and where each of them sits, then we'd be having conversations at the right time over the right things.
Correct.
But we can't just be sitting back and saying, you know what, politician will go and play the game. They're playing that game because they know they're ignorant.
And that's why I was telling you.
That's the thing. That Kenyans, they don't expect
We
Kenyans
just-
to know or speak out. It's because they don't know. So we are the ones who are handling this thing because they don't know.
And remember, whatever is said in the public is supposed to play out in a certain manner. That's what I'm saying. When you see Azimio saying, we'll just say no, they know it's going to pass.
They know.
With the amendments. They know. It's not that they
So in the end, when it passes, they'll come and say, but you see, we rejected that thing.
exactly.
We're not part of it.
Exactly. So that's why I'm saying, like, for me, my interest is my Kasarani residents, for example. And I'm the one who knows my voters. Correct? So there are some things, of course, in the finance bill I know these ones are going to help my voters or not help my voters. When we come to the subject of housing, I know everybody agrees houses are required. What they might not agree on is how do we get the houses.
Yeah.
But so far, me as a politician, a legislator, not a housing expert, I've got two proposals. 3%, 1.5. You get my point?
Yeah.
Meaning you must have the house.
Yes.
So it's this little detail of percentages that we will work
Exactly,
out.
because-
But I want the house.
Exactly. You get my point? Now, of course, other experts are coming on board now after the proposals and saying, no, the best thing is not to have a housing levy. We could have done 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
But those things are never on the table.
They are not currently on the table.
You get my point?
But then it then takes the discussion elsewhere. And the discussion now, is it really about the levy? What really are we discussing here Or is it this perennial discussion we have as Kenyans as to what exactly or where exactly does our money go?
Exactly. It's good you've said
We
that.
keep collecting this money. We pay that. Where does this money go to?
So what we have is a trust issue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Because Kenyans are saying, look, you want me to again get deducted more money. You're calling this a housing levy. You'll give me back in 7 years. You'll do. There are all these stories that you're telling me when you take my money.
Yes.
And historically, we've seen this money either is stolen, people enrich themselves.
We've never seen the
We've
money.
never seen anything happening from this money, even the taxes we've paid before.
Yes.
But what I tell people is, we could say, there has to be a certain stage where change happens.
Yeah.
And that happens through faith. let me just put it like that. Because you cannot trust anybody. We could sit back and say, look, because we don't trust government, we're not going to do anything. We'll accept anything to be deducted.
Captain, now
But at some point,
should we add reverend to your...
no, situation. Let me tell you why I'm saying this. People bought the Kenya Kwanza agenda.
Yes.
A change. And that's how it was sold. A change from the old dynasty. New changes and regime. Why don't we then trust them? There's time. There's time. There's 1 year, 2 years, we will see. Because the voting comes again in 5 years. The destruction that has happened to the Kenyan economy up to now is already ridiculous.
Yeah.
5 years, when people have hope, people had hope. Remember when Kenya
When they were
Kwanza,
voting.
they had hope.
Yep.
Lots of it.
Lots of hope. This is going to happen. Now, when someone is trying to say, for me to achieve this hope that I sold, I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, Kenyans don't trust. What I'm asking Kenyans, at some point, you'll have to trust somebody if anything is to be done.
True.
Why not now? Are we waiting again for 5 years for somebody else to come tell us a story?
A different story.
Will you trust them? No, you will not. So why not start now? So that in case you're right, a lot of progress will be made in the next 5 years, 10 years. If not, we have 5 more years of waiting for the savior to come that we trust.
So we have time. Captain, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Thank
keep coming.
you so much.
Keep coming and keep coming.
Yeah.
Captain RONALD Karauri is the Member of Parliament for Kasarani constituency, elected on an independent ticket, and that's why he's talking about those Kenya Kwanza guys and those Azimio guys. He's not in any of those camps. He's sitting there safely and comfortably. He has been talking to us about the role of representation and what he is seeing as our politics. Keep it here. Next hour, we have a Healthy Friday conversation. You know about hospices? Have you heard of the hospices? Do you understand them? That is what we will be discussing.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.